Leaders ahead of a signing. Rwanda's President Paul Kagame addressed delegates and reiterated the need for the treaty, which he said would boost low levels of inter-regional trade, key to the continent's economic well-being.
This agreement is about trade in goods and services. These are the kinds of complex products that drive high-income economies.
But the event was overshadowed by the announcement that Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari will not be attending the signing of the framework agreement. The CFTA, the brainchild of the African Union, was meant to be signed by all 55 member states of the AU, bringing together 1.2 billion people with a combined gross domestic product of more than $2 trillion. Nigeria, the continent's most populous country, had been one of the foremost champions of the CFTA, which has been in the works since 2012.
If Nigeria doesn't join, it will have an impact, definitely. Nigeria is a 190 million population country. It's a large economy. Like I was telling you, we happen to have Aliko Dangote, who's the African richest man, as co-chair of the Afro Champions. So we hope, this is our sincere hope, that Nigeria will not pull out of it.
At the moment, trade between African nations accounts for around 10% of the 55-nation continent's total commerce, a ratio that has been in gradual decline over the past decade and which compares unfavorably to 25% in Southeast Asia.
One of the challenges for intra-Africa trade is the fact that African countries do very little manufacturing and processing, locally. There's always been the question as to what are we going to trade if most of what we do is really producing raw materials and a lot more services, as we've been seeing in the last decade and two. So yes, you're right. I mean, this is it's an important challenge. If the African Continental Free Trade Area is to work, it's important that we see more manufacturing and agro-processing and processing generally in the continent. Otherwise, there's very little production to trade, with our neighboring countries.
Few question the economic power of freer trade, but skeptics say Africa's infrastructure and the lack of consideration on the varying production capabilities of African countries are still major challenges for the implementation of the CFTA.
Well, this issue is a major one for the African continent, as that agreement is being signed in Kigali today. Well, I'm being joined on the program by a trade expert and the former Director General, Nigeria Association of Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, Mr. John Isemide. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Isemide.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, viewers at all.
Well, you are a trade expert and you've traveled far and wide. How much of this new CFTA do you know?
Thank you very much. I have traveled around far and wide around the continent of Africa. Traveled by road from here to Senegal, the North African country, the East African blocks and all that. When you are talking of the Continental Free Trade Area, how free are we and how have we failed? Last year I was here and I made it clear to you there is no way in the world where government does not listen to sensible suggestions. The first thing, the action taken by Mr. President last year was laudable when we were talking of a single currency. And I made it clear here to you, I made it clear to the world that West Africa is not ready for a single currency. We have 15+1 country in West Africa. How have we failed? Having 10 different currencies, only one is convertible. And the only one that is convertible is tied to the French franc. How then are we now talking of continental free trade, where at the ECOWAS level we have achieved little or nothing? And it's not a tea party. Let us look at it. How many agreements have we signed? And most of the people pushing Mr. President to sign agreement without taking people along are those who are basically importers, because the country is overloaded with importation and import is on a single window. All the targets we have is for export of oil and importation from customs. So before we move to the next level, we have to look at where we are coming from. Another good example we have to look at is that whether Nigeria is there today or not, it's not one-off. We have to give you the example of the European, the EEC. The British Prime Minister moved the motion or came up with the suggestion in 1945 for a stronger Europe. And it was the Labour in France in 1951 said, we should be partner and be part of that committee that have to take the discussion. Before the agreement was signed in 57 and by 58. And at that agreement, there were only 6 countries. During that period, you know, Germany was East Germany, West Germany, it was only West Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Luxembourg, Belgium, and Italy. Belgium and Luxembourg are more or less together. And it was the smallest country that was given the secretariat. And from that period, they have grown. From 6, it was in 1971 that British Ireland and Denmark joined. As they were progressing, others were joining. But this issue of bringing 54 countries at the same time with different background, we have not considered the issue of the Francophone. We have not considered the issue of Anglophone. We have not considered the ERGP that the president had just signed about a week or 2 ago. And we are looking at the position of man. These are some of the things that we have to be very careful. If we look at it, AGOA, we failed woefully. We signed an agreement and we failed woefully. D8, for 20 years, Nigeria did not issue one certificate of origin of movement certificate on AGOA. Lomed 1, 2, 3, we failed under the ACP agreement. So is it continental free trade that will now push Mr. President to go and sign without listening to stakeholders like us, those of us who have traveled around the continent of Africa, who have been involved in one business or the other, who have been involved in one agreement or the other? If ECOWAS has worked for us, why is it that trade within West Africa is only 5%? In the African continent, it's only 14%. Are we going for a tea party? Most of the countries today in Kigali went there on their private jets. Sorry, went with their national carrier. Here we don't have a national carrier, we don't have a national fleet, we don't have vessel. The situation in Apapa has called for concern.
Okay,
are we now saying, yeah.
Mr. Senator, just hold your thoughts there. We'll continue with that conversation after the short break. Well, we'll take a quick break, and when we return, we will continue with this conversation. Just stay with us.